Hey everybody, welcome to vlog episode number 4. I thought I'd take a little time today, it's not really a fix-it project, but to talk about a super embarrassing problem that we've had and that we've been struggling with this past year. Way more embarrassing than the condiment problem. I don't even really want to talk about it, but I think we all struggle with this at some point in our lives, and I think we should just get it out there because I've learned some good tricks that I can teach you about. But this past year we have figured out that we have somewhat of a mouse problem in our house. I had never encountered any mice problems here in Wyoming, so I kind of figured they didn't really exist because I grew up in the Midwest where it just seemed more common, like you're living out in the middle of a cornfield, so of course you have mice. So I never expected that we'd have it here, but we do. So to kind of introduce myself, I'm Sarah. This is Just the 7 of Us. Again, episode 4. We have a mouse problem. I am trying to do this first thing in the morning because I'm realizing my new hobby of vlogging is maybe getting in the way of my real job of doing housework. But figured I can still knock out both thanks to a handy dandy second latte of the day, and it's 8:30. It's kind of funny, my wife and I were just talking the other day, and she's like, I just don't understand why people continue to eat things that make them feel bad. And I was like, yeah, that's crazy. Shout out. Anyway, yeah, so to the mouse problem. I think it was early last spring or maybe sometime in the winter, we saw a mouse. I can't remember if the first one we saw was in the big boy's room, which, to be honest, like, as much as we try to have the rule that there is absolutely no food in their rooms, you know, 2 teenage boys, like, there's food everywhere in their pockets, and there's wrappers, and they think rules don't apply to them. So I think our 14-year-old saw a little mouse run across his floor. And earlier that year we had bought a couple traps because we were getting mice in the shed, which made sense because we have chicken feed out there. Okay, so long story, but a couple of our kids are super sensitive, so we decided to go buy like the humane traps. This isn't the first trap that we found, but we had ordered this little green live trap off the internet. And so we put that in his room, caught the mouse within the first hour, but unfortunately they're not so humane after all because we probably caught it like right after he went to bed, and in the morning it took us a couple mice catches to figure this out, but these little suckers are airproof. So basically, instead of killing them instantly by breaking their necks, we just suffocated them to death over the course of 8 hours. So that was pretty traumatic for everyone involved. So, like an idiot, you know, instead of like, hey kids, we just have to do this the humane way, I'm like out there in the wood shop, like drilling tiny holes in the plastic so that we can still trap them live and not kill any mice. So we're like, okay, well, if there's one mouse, maybe there's more. Our daughter saw another little mouse run in the kitchen, and they were like the little field mice, kind of cute, like brown, tiny, not the big, fat, ugly, gray ones. So we caught another one in there. We figured out how to trap them. We trapped about 5, and then we stopped catching them. So we're like, okay, great. We must have caught them all. It was a really cold week during the winter, like -20. Maybe they came in. And to be honest, too, I wasn't like, they recommend letting them out, like release them 3 miles away. Well, I'm not going to like get in my car and drive these mice somewhere nice. So I was like letting them go trying to find a place in the neighborhood where I wasn't giving someone else a problem, but we also just kind of figured, well, maybe a couple of them started coming back in the house for some reason, and then we couldn't catch them. So fast forward to the spring. It was early summer, I guess, and the kids were gone, and sure enough, like our bedroom's in our basement, and we could hear scratching above our heads. And the first night or two, like, it woke us both up. We're like freaking out, couldn't get back to sleep. By the end of the week, we were like literally like rotating bedrooms to try to get away from the noise because it just kept getting louder and longer and starting earlier in the evening. And we're just like, I mean, my wife's threatening to move out. I don't know what to do because it's like, sounds like there's a freaking like possum in our ceiling and we're not trapping anymore. So the next day, like, we're about to leave on a trip. So the next day I go out, buy all the like sonic plugins that are supposed to emit this crazy noise, plug them in every room in our house. You know, the directions are like, hey, at first you might hear even more noise coming from the mice because they're like trying to get out of your house. So we're like, okay, plug them all in. Don't really set any traps because we're leaving on vacation. We get back, we don't hear anything. We're like, oh, perfect. It worked, gone. Well, then the kids started finding mice. And the weird part is that we never found any signs or evidence of mice anywhere in our kitchen, which is super weird because the kids have a snack cupboard and it's like on the floor level. And of course they're like digging through chips and granola and spilling it everywhere. Not a single mouse dropping anywhere over there. But we start catching them in the corner, if you can see, over there by the couch. There's no food anywhere. We do have a really strict no eating in the living room, and even if the kids do sneak it, it's not like there's so much food. Anyway, I finally started setting some traps, and like by this point I'm like, we're not messing around with these stupid things anymore. We're going with the big guns. Long story short, over the course of like a week, we caught 20 mice. We're pretty sure like the mouse we heard was a mama mouse building a nest, and then when we were gone, she had her babies, and then these babies grew a couple weeks and started coming out of the vent, and just one after another, like, hey, we haven't seen Bob for a while, you should go up and check him out. And I was just catching them like a couple a day. It seriously creeped me out. To the point, we finally just went to the shelter and got a cat. And I'm going to talk about the cat more because now we have way more problems than mice. But anyway. Okay, I'll just talk about the cat now. So we get a cat. We get a barn cat. She's pretty sweet. Our dog's kind of a jerk. Let me see. I don't know if you can see him. He's laying over there on the couch. He's just totally worthless. Like, kind of worst decision we've ever made. But the kids love him, and now we're stuck with him. But he's kind of a jerk. So I figured, well, you know, I've had dogs that don't like cats in the past, and they get over it because the cat finally stands up for itself and problem solved. But this stupid dog, like, wants that cat dead. And I tried for a few weeks to, like, train the cat and train the dog. But now they're at a super hate-you relationship. And now I have this problem where I have to keep them separate. So basically right now, the dog gets the day and the cat gets the night. And we let the cat out. She stays in our 14-year-old's room and hangs out there all day, and then we put the dog away, and then the cat can come out at night and technically hunt for mice, which she has caught one that we know of, but I don't know how successful she is. So now we have this totally worthless cat too that can't get along with the dog, and so I guess the idea is that if you have a mouse problem, you can just add to your plate and have more than the mouse problem, and then maybe your mouse problem won't seem so bad. So you probably can hear the dog whining to get in here to kill this cat. So anyway, I think I mentioned, right, as of today, I've caught 26 mice total. I mean, including the one the cat caught, so I can't take all the credit. But I wanted to show you kind of what tricks have worked for me. Again, these are just kind of worthless. This one in particular, I never caught any mice in. We had a different little system that we caught a couple in, but it seemed like after the first two, even though we had mice, they seemed to be smarter about it. So then I went out and bought these, which are a big pain in the butt. And to be honest, mice are typically smarter than this, at least ours. I mean, you do have to brag on them a little bit, but we would just find these cleaned out in the morning. They're able to even lick peanut butter off these without setting them off. So I started Googling, and someone suggested like lunch meat, but of course they can pick that right off here. So you literally would have to tie, I would use dental floss to tie lunch meat on there, which did happen to work. But I found these bad boys at Menards, and these have worked the best for me. Pretty much because if you can see, there's like a little well in here that you can put the peanut butter into. And so they really have to get in there, and it will always set it off. It's pretty hard for them to pull anything out. My trick is that, of course, you know, we all like to be experts in things like this that we never wanted to be, but I put peanut butter in this hole, and then I just take a little bit of lunch meat and stick it on top of the peanut butter, and I think that it's the lunch meat. They come for the lunch meat and stay for the peanut butter, basically. If it's just peanut butter, a lot of times they don't seem to care. But the lunch meat, they love, but the peanut butter helps like make the lunch meat stick down. And even if they can grab the lunch meat off here, they usually do stay for the peanut butter long enough to get snatched. I've done a little experimenting too with what kinds of lunch meat. Ham works really well. I mean, they're just like us. Also, like hard salami can work well. Peanut butter, I have found that they like the creamy versus the crunchy. But these babies can catch a lot, and they're really easy to release too. So you got your nasty little dead mouse, and you just squeeze this, and it drops. The first couple times I just couldn't do it. And I threw the trap away, but if you've caught 26 mice, that would get very expensive really fast. So I have 4 of these that I set around the house, and they seem to work really well, and I just got over having to like drop the dead mouse in the outdoor can. And I do hope that you guys recognize like who's catching the mice here. So this has fallen broadly into my job category. Yeah, see the dog, the only thing the dog's good for is he's figured out that these are really painful, and he leaves the mouse traps alone, so I guess that's a good sign. Anyway, the other day, so one of the problems we've had though is that the mice must be getting in at the ground level because we hear them in the ceiling of the basement, and so they're like between levels in the crawl space basically, and that's why a lot of times the cat can't catch it or we don't see them, but they're in the crawl space. And the problem is like you get one pregnant mouse and you've got probably a lifetime of mouse problems unless you're just really diligent and we're catching them like crazy. I'll show you outside. We had looked around our foundation and really couldn't find anywhere they were getting in. But then we found in the backside of our house, our foundation is really crumbly. And the little pile next to the foundation seemed to be getting bigger, so I think they were digging in. So hopefully we patched that up. We hired a neighbor to cement the foundation. That was definitely a job above my pay grade to fix that. So we were like, well, hopefully, okay, we've got a cat. If the cat's not great at catching mice, maybe it's still a deterrent. I don't know. We've patched up where they could be getting in. And the other night, honest to goodness, we hear a freaking another mouse. So luckily I found out too that we have a place in our house, and I'll walk over here, where we can access kind of the crawl space, and it's in a weird little cupboard in our hallway. It used to be like a pantry or not a pantry, but like a laundry chute or some kind of chute. And you can see down in there that I have a couple of the traps set. And that we have been able to catch mice in, so they're not even coming up to the main floor yet. We're just catching them in the subfloor. So anyway, the other night, sure enough, I hear another freaking mouse. And like, at this point, whenever I hear it, I can't sleep, like I'm freaking out. It's getting creepy, right? So I'm like, well, it's been a few weeks since we caught a mouse, and the other thing I've noticed is like, I was setting traps, and if I didn't get any, a week would go by and no mice. And I think it's because the lunch meat has to be fresh, of course, because they're picky. So be sure to it's not necessarily that you don't have any more mice, it's because they really want fresh lunch meat. So sure enough, I put a trap in, catch the mouse. The other morning I go in, I'm like, oh, I caught another mouse. I start reaching down in there, and it squeaked, and the mouse trap ran away. And I freaked out. So I'm like, okay, well, it didn't quite kill it. Maybe it just got trapped. I'm just going to give it a couple hours, and hopefully it'll be out of its misery soon. So a couple hours later I go in, and by then, like, the trap, I can't even see the trap. It had, like, crawled with the trap or moved with the trap around a little corner. I'm like, oh gosh, I have to stick my hand down this chute and like reach blindly. I can't do this. So I get a stick, and the thing moves again. Well, I kind of drag it out to see, and this is super traumatic for me. The poor mouse was caught just by its leg. So it was not going to die anytime soon. But now I have this problem that the trap is like a foot below me. I have to reach down, and there's no way I can touch the mouse trap with the mouse dangling here that it's not going to touch my hand. My wife's like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm like, well, I've got to be able to figure this out. Like, we can do this. She's like, well, maybe we should call a guy. I'm like, no, that's so humiliating. We cannot do that. I mean, I will call guys for other things, but we've got to be able to figure this out. Like, let's man up here. So, between a leather glove, long tongs that we're not using anymore, I was able to, like, reach down, pick the trap up, carry it with the mouse dangling, and then I'm like, well, what do I do with it? Like, I can't let it go anywhere because it's just going to die the slow death. So I did the most humane thing I could do. I let it go in our outdoor garbage so that at least for the next few days until the garbage truck comes, I could live a happy, injured life where it's like at least happily eating garbage until it just meets its maker. But I'm also like, we may also be seeing a 3-legged mouse in the house sometime soon. But hopefully this will help if you guys ever have a mouse problem. Like, I did a lot of Googling, and there are some kind of crazy ideas out there like, oh, don't catch them in the same spot because they can smell death. And that, I think, is a bunch of bull. It's more about what you're using to trap them with. And like I said, we caught like 20 in the same exact spot. So I don't think that's an issue. Dogs, like this one are definitely worthless against any mice. Like it doesn't seem to bother them at all. So I'm hoping I don't ever have to do a follow-up vlog on this issue. That 26 has been plenty to catch, and we've covered all our bases. So I hope that we'll have a new episode here soon, but not about mice.